Hello students. Today we shall deal with a very well-known Indian writer named Ruskin Bond. Have any of you heard the name of Ruskin Bond? Can you tell me who he is?
He is an Indian born British descent.
Yeah, he is an Indian writer of British descent or British origin.
Yeah.
But although he studied in England for a short while, he preferred to come back to India because he felt a close connection with the land, especially in the vicinity of the Himalayas. Okay? Now, are you aware that Ruskin Bond is also a winner of some awards?
Yes.
Can you tell me which are the awards he... Yeah, he first won, you're right, he first won the Sahitya Academy Award, and after that he was also awarded the Padma Shri, which you know it's a very high award. You see, it's an award of recognition of a person's services. So today we are dealing with a writer who is very closely associated with India, the vicinity of the Himalayas, with the flora and fauna of these places, the scenic splendor. But you must also understand Ruskin Bond as one who understood human nature very closely. Ruskin Bond had a close affinity with nature and human nature. He has written more than 100 short stories and more than 30 novels. It is generally believed that Ruskin Bond writes for children. But we must appreciate the fact that he also appeals to the child and the adult. You know, his stories are not just meant for children. You know, he's got a simplicity in his style, and he has got a natural affinity to, as I told you, to nature, to the understanding of human psychology. So now we shall focus on the short story prescribed for your study. Can you tell me the title of the short story? How far unnamed 12-year-old boy. Unnamed. You know, you would wonder why this boy is not given a name. Now we will see later why Ruskin Bond, you know, refrains from giving this boy a name. So here you have a 12-year-old boy. He lives, his house is situated on a hill close to a mountain. His house is on a hill close to the mountain. Now, beyond the mountain is a river, a small river. This boy, this unnamed 12-year-old boy, had heard a great deal about this river. He longed to see the river. You know, he had a dream. He said, I must locate this river. I must touch its waters with my hands. And in his words, I must know it personally. You know, this is something I will talk about in detail after I complete the story, you know. He says, I must know it personally. So here you have the boy, you know, bright-eyed. How does he look? Well, he's a sturdy boy, you know, well-built. He's got shining black eyes, untidy black hair, okay, very sharp-featured and a brown skin. So this is the protagonist of the short story. Now this boy stands one day in the veranda of his house. He looks across the valley with the dream burning in his heart. And he thinks to himself, how wonderful it would be if I could one day find out where the river is. And if I could let the waters of the river touch my body. This is how the story begins. That day, it so happened that the boy's parents had left him alone. They had gone out visiting relatives. The boy was alone at home, and they were not likely to return home until evening time. Suddenly an idea strikes the boy. He tells himself, why don't I go out and explore this river which I have dreamt of in my mind. He says to himself, I will go out alone, and before my parents return, I will be back. I will discover the river and I will return. My parents will not even know I have left the house. With this plan, now he says, let me make arrangements. I mean, you must appreciate this boy. He does not know where the river is. He has only heard about a river. He has heard of its currents. He has heard of its waterfalls. He has heard of its waves, but he has never seen it. So then, when he goes into the house, he finds that there is a loaf of bread, there is a couple of eggs, and so what he does is, he takes a sheet of newspaper, he wraps the loaf of bread in the newspaper, and now he decides to go alone and discover the river. As he steps out of the house, he closes the windows and doors of his house and embarks on his trek. Trek, it's a long walk. He just starts walking towards the river. Now you must understand that this place, is not even, it is not smooth, it is very steep. The walk that the boy undertakes is so steep that he is not able to walk. In fact, he keeps running, because if he walks, he will fall down. And as he keeps walking, sometimes he trips, he lands in a bush, but he does not give up. He does not even know where the river is, but he is determined in his mind that he will find the river. So as he keeps walking, he finds woodcutters, he finds mule drivers, and he finds, workers going to the field. As he passes by a woodcutter, he asks him, do you know the place to the river? The woodcutter says, yes, I have also heard about the river. I have not seen it, but I know it is about 7 miles from here. He says, 7 miles? And the woodcutter says, yes, my boy, let me tell you. It's not only 7 miles away, but it is a difficult path. You will have to pass by forests, you will have to pass by valleys, you will have to pass by many, many houses. I can only tell you that it will take you at least 3 hours. At first, the boy was discouraged. He said, I have been walking for 1 hour now. And you must appreciate the fact that this boy doesn't wear slippers or shoes. He walks barefoot. Now, if you think he is doing that because he is poor, you are mistaken. He does not do that because he cannot afford a pair of slippers or shoes. He does that because he likes the feel of the earth, the ground on his naked feet. I think none of us is like that, We all like to be properly, dressed with the right footwear, slipper or shoe. But look at this boy. He is so close to nature. He is so familiar with that region. And he tells himself, if I wear shoes, suddenly it will come off. Then I have to bend and, put my shoe or slipper back. So he says it's much easier to walk barefoot. Then he tells the woodcutter, oh, okay, you say 3 hours, that should not be a problem. And the woodcutter, looks at him strangely. And he says, no, I have already walked 1 mile. 1 mile is the walking I do every day from my house to the school. So it's all right. If you say 7 miles, I think I can manage. When the woodcutter passes by, the boy looks at him and says, I am a good walker. He just skips and runs and says, I am a good walker. The woodcutter just smiles at him. And how life is in the village, the woodcutter is so considerate that he just keeps an eye on this boy, assuming that if he loses his way, he will again be able to give him right directions. But this boy, he is full of enthusiasm. He somehow wants to reach that river. But now he realizes that his feet is hurting. Both his feet are hurting. The sun is very hot. It's coming down very hot and, on his face and on his hair. But still, he does not give up. You know why he does not give up? He says, if I stop now, it will be a failure on my part. And he says, more than others, I will laugh at myself. I don't want to do that. So he continues to press on. He keeps walking and walking and walking to reach the river. He only knows one thing, that the river is far away. Now as the boy keeps walking, he suddenly looks around and he sees a young girl. A young girl, and she has rings in her nose, and she has got rings in her ears, and her arms are fully covered with bangles. And he looks at her because she's walking with a long curved knife. So he tells himself, I think she's a grass cutter, because the way she is holding the knife and the way she walks, she looks like a grass cutter. The boy is now becoming a little tired. So he casually asks the girl, do you know the way to the river? And she looks at him, and her bangles and her earrings are making a very loud sound. And she tells him, oh yes, I know the river, it is 20 miles from here. When the boy hears that, he just laughs. He just laughs because, I think it's a very typical situation. Sometimes people might not know the directions to a place, but they try to tell you something vague. So he knew that this girl was ignorant of the river. So he just laughed at that and continued his journey. Now he kept running. Suddenly, the boy sees a trickle of water coming down from the mountain. And when he sees the water, he's tempted to drink it. And the water is very cold, but he enjoys drinking it because it quenches his thirst. But strangely he finds that although he drinks the water, he feels thirsty again after a short while. As he keeps walking forward, suddenly he notices a village boy walking a few steps ahead of him, driving a few goats. So you have this village boy. This is our protagonist, the unnamed 12-year-old boy. Now he comes into contact with a village boy. This village boy was driving a few goats ahead and walking a few paces in front of the 12-year-old unnamed boy. Now when he sees the village boy smiles at him. And Ruskin Bond tells us that he smiles at him in a friendly way. Now when he gives him that friendly smile, boy is encouraged to talk to him, and very soon they become friends. They sit down together and eat the bread together. After this, they decide to continue their walk together. The boy had inquired from the village boy about the distance of the river, and the village boy had told him that it was very close by. He just had to cross the last part of the mountain and reach a path which was very close to the river. Hearing this, the boy feels very encouraged, and he now continues the journey along with the village boy. For a long time they both walk together, and they do not know how time passes because they indulge in chatter. They talk about many things until the village boy tells the 12-year-old boy that now he has to take another path. Their paths have now diverged. The 12-year-old boy feels a little unhappy, but he reminds himself that at this stage he cannot go back to his house. As I told you earlier, he would be disappointed at himself more than disappointing others. He felt that it would be a disappointment that his dream was not realized. So he continues on. Now he is very conscious of his fatigue, his thirst, his isolation. As he keeps moving forward, the time is almost close to sunset, almost close. And he finds that the houses and the villages have all passed away. They have passed him. There is only the forest before him, and he is acutely conscious of a silence. Ruskin Bond talks about this silence as, you can write it down, frightening. There was now only a frightening silence. This was not the silence of a room or the silence of a street. It was an unknown silence. Ruskin Bond calls it the silence of space. He also calls it the silence of God. I think again you can visualize in your minds a young boy after a long journey encountering only silence. There is only nature in her depth, in her beauty, and this boy alone on his mission to reach the river. Now comes a very climatic moment in the boy's mind, because he wonders, should he now turn back? Because so long he was only tired and thirsty and hungry. Now he is afraid, because it's just him and the landscape, nature around him. Now as he wonders what he should do, he thinks, let me go a little further. And as he goes further, he hears a loud roaring sound. A loud roaring sound which surprises him. He wonders, what is this loud roaring sound? And when he turns around, he finds that long-awaited river gushing forward. Through in the crags of the mountains, you could see the river rushing. How does a writer describe the river? The writer says, it was blue and white and wonderful. The writer describes the river as being blue, white and wonderful. Now what does the boy do when he sees the river? At first he is in a state of disbelief, because after so many hours he has reached his destination. Now what does he do? He runs towards the river. He runs towards the river. He almost trips and falls, but still he presses on. And the last sentence in the short story tells you that he was ankle deep in the river. Okay, and this is how the story ends. The ending is understated. Ruskin Bond does not tell us anything, but we are free to make our own inferences. Okay, so this is about the short story, How Far is the River? I told you, you can say the title in two ways. You can just say, how far is the river? Or in the boy's context, you can say, how far is the river? I would now highlight some of the important aspects of this short story, How Far is the River? Can you tell me what is one of the main things you have noticed in this short story?
The boy had firm determination to see the river.
Very good. The boy had a great determination to see the river. Now before that, let me talk about a very important aspect of the short story, and that is the depiction of nature. Have you heard of the English romantic poet William Wordsworth? Yes. Yeah. Wordsworth was the father of the romantic age, and he had such a close affinity to nature that he was called the high priest of nature. Then you have other romantic poets like Shelley and Keats. You have the pantheism theory, where they say we cannot see God directly, but we can see God through nature. Ruskin Bond, in this short story, you will realize he has a very close affinity with nature. He seems to understand nature very, very closely. For example, Ruskin Bond was born in Kasauli, Himachal Pradesh. He lived for a while in Dehradun and Shimla. So he knew the vicinity of the Himalayas, its flora and fauna very, very closely. So this is what he depicts basically in the short story. Now against this backdrop of nature, you have beautiful descriptions. If you read the short story, you will realize there are beautiful descriptions of, a beautiful dahlia flower suddenly appearing as the boy walks, coming down his path. Then you have a parrot, green and red, suddenly screeching in the valley. So you find Ruskin Bond very, very closely allied to nature. That is one very important thing. You read about the ferns, you read about the waterfalls, the currents, the river. It's a natural setting. It's a natural setting. You must understand that in today's urbanized world, we don't have much time for nature. I'm quoting from Ruskin Bond. I know that only the simple kind of reader will appreciate my short stories. You know, Ruskin Bond was at heart extremely simple. So that is why if you look even at his language, you will find that he uses a very simple style of language. If you read the short story, you will find he doesn't use any difficult words. I mean, that is a style. But through this style, he is able to convey a great deal, you know. There is a good reflection of nature's authenticity. And you will find that aesthetic dealing with the intricacies of nature. Now, a very important aspect of the short story is its symbolism. Write down symbolism. What do we mean by symbolism? For example, you know, you have the mountain in the short story. What do you think the mountain stands for? You have the boy, you have the river, far away. In the middle you have the mountain. Now the boy has to cross the mountain, go through difficult paths and finally reach the river. What does this tell us?
This is a difficult task.
What is a difficult task?
Reaching the destination.
What is the message?
There are many hindrances in life to go to the
to reach your goal. Yes. If you have read the writing of Paulo Coelho, the Brazilian writer, you will find that he talks about the importance of everyone having dreams. Because in the pursuit of that dream, you will target or channelize all your energy. Now, when you look at the short story, you find that the river is the boy's dream. The mountain is the obstacle. Does the boy look at the obstacle or does he look at the river? Why does he look at the river? And more importantly, what is he prepared to do to reach the river? Can you take the story and apply it in your context? Suppose you have a goal, an objective, or shall we call it a dream? Will it be easy for you to realize that dream?
No.
What will it cost you? Look at that boy's story. You see all the hardships that he underwent?
Yes.
And finally, did he realize his dream or not?
Yes.
Yes, and finally, how did he react? He goes headlong into the river, touches the water, and goes ankle deep into the water. You know, that is the actual realization of the dream. So when you read a writer like Ruskin Bond, you should appreciate the basic value of the short story or the writing, but more importantly, you should be able to understand the symbolism of the writer. That is why the short story is entitled, How Far is the River? You know, it does not say how near is the river or how close is the river. It says how far is the river, meaning that for us to realize our goal, it is a distant, there is a distance between our goal, our dream and its actual realization. So I think this is what Ruskin Bond is trying to tell us in this short story.